actually very hostile to religion. The country said, the reason America became and is the greatest country in the history of the world is one word: faith. Faith. That's what makes us different. If you think about it from the very beginning of what's made us different. Our country was founded different than any other country in the history of the world. It was founded, and we hear a lot of talk now, particularly in Republican circles during this election, about the Constitution. We're going to go back to the Constitution, limited government under the Constitution. But what people don't talk about is a document that is important. I mean, the Constitution is important. It's the Operator's Manual of America. It's how America is supposed to operate. But it's not the why of America. It's the how of America. It's how we're to do business, not why we're here. That came in a different document that we don't talk about as much. It's a document that transformed the world. It makes us different today than any other country. Because in that document, it tells us where our rights come from. That makes us different. No other country in the world says in our founding document, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. You want to know what makes America different? That does. What makes America exceptional? That does. There are other countries that have had freedoms like we have, opportunity like we have, documents that guarantee certain freedoms like the Constitution does. But none of those countries have what we have. You go back to revolutionary France, pretty much the same time of the American Revolution. And it failed miserably. Why? Because their Constitution was based on three things: liberty, fraternity, and equality. Liberty, fraternity, brotherhood, but no fatherhood. It was a secular revolution. And so when people got freedom, they realized when people got rights, they understood those rights came from the Constitution. And therefore, man could decide what rights people had and what rights people didn't. If man can give you rights, man can take those rights away. But not in America. Oh, men have tried to take rights away in America. But ultimately, our country understood that the civil law had to comport with the higher law. And when it doesn't, there is friction. And you know where the friction comes from? People of faith. It always has come. If you look at every great struggle in America, where the civil law has been out of sync with God's higher law, it comes from people of faith. That's why it is very chilling to see in our society today faith being continually marginalized in schools, in the public square, by politicians, by courts. Why? Because the less we recognize where your rights come from, the less we recognize faith as an integral part of America, the more power man has over you. You see, this is not about, well, people can think and believe whatever they want. It's a basic understanding of who we are. It's a basic understanding when we say faith, as Senator Sibley talked about, faith has no place in public education. What message are we sending to our children of the importance of faith? Do you ever hear the conversation I've just talked to you about in any public school in America? You do not.
No.
You're not allowed to. Why? Because the people who are setting that curriculum want to make sure that they have the power.
That's right.
People have asked me, how are you going to bring America together? America is so divided. It is divided. Because we don't have leaders who remind us who we are and where we came from. America is a great country because we built America through foundational institutions of faith and the families that instilled that faith in their children. Those are the last two institutions left The last two institutions left that hold the values that made this country great. The rest are all about power. They're all about dictating to you, from their perspective, how you should run your lives, as opposed to allowing people to pursue their dreams through their God-given rights. People want to know what the fundamental issue in this election, that's the fundamental issue in every election. And so when I say faith plus family equals freedom, I talk about not only the importance of faith, but the vital importance of the family in America. A family being the foundation. You can't build a civilization on the individual. You can't. Any more than you can build a house on grains of sand. You have to build it on a bond. Remember that cornerstone. To build it on something that's strong, that can support a civilization. And something that's strong is something that's bonded together like marriage, that bonds two people, a man and a woman, together for the purpose of stabilizing both the man and the woman. We are made complementary. This institution of marriage existed before government existed. It is not just ordained by God, but it is ordained by common sense and by nature. That recognizes truth. We always try to rationalize and convince ourselves that every other thing is right, even though we know it isn't right. Because, well, we don't want to make people feel bad. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We don't want to feel like people are being treated unfairly. And so we ignore what is true. Because, well, it's easier. You don't get criticized. You don't have people say bad things about you. And so what we do is we just ignore the truth. And we put our head down. As people of faith, we put our head down because it's hard. It's hard to stand up for the truth. Particularly in a world that doesn't celebrate the truth. But you know, there are lots of passages in the Bible that tell us that. Lots of passages about hating and persecuting you because you stand up for His teachings. And you stand up for truth, because I always say that I'm a person of faith, but I always bring faith and reason. I'm a guy that brings two guns to a gunfight. Both faith and reason. And if your faith is true and your reason is right, God created us. He created reason, so He's going to end up at the same place. Right? Arrive at what is right and just for our families. And families are important. If you want to have a strong America, everybody says, well, this is election, and this country's just focused on one thing right now. The economy is so bad, and I know it's really bad here in the state of Florida. We just got to focus on the economy. The word economy comes from the Greek word for home. The first economy is in the home. Wow. And if the economy in the home fails, the economy generally will fail. When families break down, as they are in America, breaking down everywhere. And of course they're breaking down more in poorer communities, in minority communities, much higher rates of family breakdown, or not even family creation in the first place. And what happens? What are the consequences? Well, let's look at it first. 30 years ago, 71% of people in America over the age of 18 were married. Today it's 51%. In the last 3 years, it's dropped 5 percentage points, the fastest ever since they've been measured. Gee, I wonder why marriage is less of an option for people. Why marriage is not something that's considered important. There's a program out there called Healthy Marriage that I helped put together, was one of the initiators of, along with a whole lot of other programs on fatherhood and everything else. Because Hillary Clinton wrote a book back in the 1990s called It Takes a Village. I wrote the counter, It Takes a Family. And so I put forth a lot of ideas to try to help nurture the family. One of them was this healthy marriage proposal that would contract out with a lot of different agencies, faith-based and others, to try to help at-risk children, 13, 14, 15 years old, to make healthy choices. Well, the administration, the Obama administration, just handed down a regulation last year saying to those organizations, they can no longer teach that having sex at 13 is an at-risk behavior. They can no longer even mention the word abstinence. Why? Why? Why would the government lie? Why would the government go out and tell people what they know? It's going to harm them. There was a study done by a liberal think tank 3 years ago, the Brookings Institute. And they said this was a very liberal organization. They went out and they studied poverty in America. What caused it? And they came up with 3 things that if everybody in America did, we could eliminate poverty. 3 things, all very reachable and achievable. If we as society decided to preach, not preach from the pulpit, yes, preach from the pulpit, but from every podium, from every street corner. What 3 things that if you told everybody in America, and you can encourage them and help them to do, would eliminate poverty in America? 3 things. 1, work. Obviously, that's just common sense, but it's also biblical. Work. And any kind of work. This idea I hear all the time, well, you know, good jobs and bad jobs. Every job is a good job if you do it the best you can. Second, graduate from high school. Okay? Graduate from high school. 1.2 million children in America this year will not graduate from high school. Wow. And we have an education system that just worries about the system, the people who work in it, more than making sure that we aren't losing millions of children to poverty and to hopelessness. And 3, you all know this, you know what I'm going to say, get married before you have children.
Yes. Yes.
Those 3 things, according to the Brookings Institute, if you do those 3 things in America, the chance that you will ever in your lifetime be in poverty is 2%. The chances that you will earn you will be in the top half of income earners in America. Top half. You will be in the top half of income earners in America. 77% chance if you do those 3 things. If you don't do one of those 3 things, just one, not all of them. If you don't do just one of those 3 things, the chance you'll be in poverty, 74%. Chance that you will be in the top half ever in your life, 4%. So I ask the President, why? Why?
Why?
Why would you do something that you know results in people not achieving in America, economic? Why would you do it? Why would we do it as a society? Why can't we just stand up and say how important the family is, how important marriage as an institution is, how children have a right to know and be loved by their mother and father? Why can't we do that? Ladies and gentlemen, there are big economic problems, and I can talk to you about a long list of economic programs, but we will never have a strong economy in the future. We will never have limited government. We will continue to be less free unless we revitalize the institutions of faith and family in America. That's the real message.
Yeah.
It's a message that you are out talking about. And all these bills that you're talking about, it's all about making sure that we have respect for faith and life. We have respect for families. And to try to build a healthy and good society. So I want to thank you for being here this morning. I want to thank you for standing up for truth. And for doing so in a bipartisan way. Standing up and fighting for what is best for our children and our grandchildren. And standing up for what God has called you to do.